The ground is shaking. Not an earthquake, not a storm. Something is moving through the tree line, and you can feel it in your chest before you can see it. The men around you go silent. No one speaks. No one runs. Because you have been planning this for 3 days, and there is no turning back now. The mammoth steps into the clearing. It is 4 tons of muscle, fur, and curved tusk, and it is looking directly at you. For roughly 200,000 years, this scene played out across Ice Age Europe, Asia, and the Americas. Your ancestors hunted the largest land animal on Earth. Not with rifles, not with traps or tranquilizers, with wooden spears, flint points, and a plan that had to work perfectly, because if it didn't, the thing trying to kill your dinner would kill you instead. This is the story of the mammoth hunt. How your ancestors actually did it, what the evidence tells us, and what happened on the days when everything went wrong. But here's the thing nobody tells you. The mammoth hunt was not about strength. It was never about strength. A woolly mammoth stood 13 feet at the shoulder and weighed as much as 2 pickup trucks. No human being, no matter how big, how fast, or how brave, wins a direct fight with that. The entire strategy of mammoth hunting was built around one question. How do you kill something that can kill all of you without ever touching it? The answer your ancestors developed was not one answer. It was several, refined over tens of thousands of years, different in the grasslands of Siberia than in the forests of Central Europe, different on the open plains of North America than in the river valleys of the Middle East. But they shared the same core principle. You do not fight the mammoth. You control where it goes. Let's talk about what the evidence actually tells us. The oldest confirmed evidence of humans hunting large animals with wooden spears comes from Schöningen, Germany. In the 1990s, archaeologists excavating a former open-cast coal mine pulled out 8 throwing spears made from spruce wood, dating to approximately 300,000 years ago. They were found alongside the butchered remains of over 20 horses. These were not scavenged carcasses. The cut marks on the bones tell a different story. A story of deliberate, coordinated killing. 300,000 years ago. That was before our species even existed. Homo heidelbergensis, an ancestor we share with both Neanderthals and modern humans, was already hunting in organized groups with purpose-built weapons. By the time your direct ancestors arrived on the scene, they had been refining this skill for hundreds of thousands of years. They were, by any reasonable measure, extremely good at it. Here's where it gets interesting. Mammoth hunting was not a solo act or even a small group act. The best archaeological evidence we have suggests mammoth hunts required coordinated groups of 10 to 30 people. Men, women, and older children, each with a specific role. This was not a gathering of warriors. This was logistics. The approach began days before the actual hunt. Scouts would track a target animal, often a juvenile, an elderly individual, or an animal already separated from the herd. Mammoths were social animals. A lone mammoth was a more manageable mammoth. But manageable is a relative term when the animal in question has 6-foot curved tusks and the temperament of something that has been alive in an ice age for 30 years. Once the target was identified, the group would shape the landscape. Not build it, shape it. They would position themselves along natural corridors, valley walls, river bends, cliff edges, boggy ground near water sources, and use fire, noise, and their own bodies to funnel the animal toward a predetermined killing zone. Gary Haynes, an archaeologist who spent decades studying mammoth kill sites across North America and Eurasia, documented something crucial about the locations where mammoth bones cluster. They are not random. They are almost always near water. Bogs, river crossings, steep-banked streams. A mammoth that steps into soft ground loses its greatest advantage: mobility. An animal that cannot run is an animal your ancestors could actually approach. That approach was still the most dangerous moment of the entire hunt. You might be thinking, couldn't they just throw spears from a safe distance? Some of them did. Atlatls, spear-throwing devices that act as an extension of the arm, dramatically increasing throwing power and range, were in use by at least 30,000 years ago, possibly much earlier. A skilled hunter with an atlatl could put a spear through a thick hide at distance with enough force to do real damage. Archaeological evidence from Clovis culture sites in North America, dating to around 13,000 years ago, shows exactly this. Clovis points, a distinctive style of finely worked flint spear tip, found embedded in or directly alongside mammoth bones at kill sites across the continent. But here is the reality of mammoth anatomy that your ancestors learned the hard way. A single spear, even a well-thrown one, rarely killed a mammoth outright. The animal was simply too large, too heavily muscled, and too armored by layers of fat and thick fur. A spear that would kill a deer would do little more than enrage an elephant. So they stabbed, up close, multiple hunters from multiple angles, targeting specific points, behind the ear, beneath the foreleg, toward the base of the skull. Places where the hide was thinner, and the vital structures closer to the surface. This required hunters to get within touching distance of an animal that weighed 80 times more than they did. The ones who did this successfully were not reckless. They were precise. Anthropologist Pat Shipman, analyzing the cut mark patterns on ancient mammoth bones, found evidence of systematic, methodical butchering, evidence of people who knew exactly where to cut, in what order, to break down an animal this size as efficiently as possible. That knowledge came from experience, accumulated, passed down, taught. And now here is the part of the story that almost nobody talks about. The hunts failed, often. We know this not from texts or paintings, but from bones. From mammoth remains that show healed spear wounds, punctures in ribs, and shoulder blades that closed over with bone growth, meaning the animal survived the initial attack and lived for years afterward. From kill sites that show signs of a hunt that went sideways, scattered bones, missing anatomical sections that suggest the butchering was interrupted, perhaps by a second mammoth, perhaps by a cave lion that moved in to claim the kill. What happened to the hunters when the plan fell apart? There are no eyewitness accounts, but the skeletal remains of Upper Paleolithic humans show us something. Anthropologists studying ancient injuries have found healed fractures consistent with being struck by large animals. Compressed vertebrae, crushed ribs, broken arms with healed joints that suggest the bone was set and immobilized. People survived serious injuries, which means other people helped them survive, carried them, fed them, kept them alive through a recovery that could take months. In a world without agriculture, a hunter who could not hunt for 3 months was a liability. And yet the evidence tells us those hunters survived. Someone decided they were worth keeping. Does this surprise you? It probably shouldn't. But it reframes something important about what your ancestors were. They were not simply killing machines. They were communities. The mammoth hunt required community before it required courage. Let's reconstruct what success actually looked like. The kill is done. The mammoth is down. It has been hours since the first spear, and the animal finally stopped moving as the sun began to drop toward the horizon. The group moves in. The atmosphere is not triumphant. It is practical. There is a carcass the size of a small house, and it needs to be processed before scavengers arrive, before the meat spoils, before the cold sets in. A fully grown mammoth provided somewhere between 1,500 and 3,000 pounds of usable meat, plus fat, critical in an Ice Age diet where calories from animal fat were often the difference between surviving winter and not, plus bone marrow, plus hide for clothing and shelter, plus tendons for binding, plus ivory for tools and ornament. Nothing went to waste. The processing alone, splitting the carcass, separating sections, scraping hides, rendering fat, could take 2 or 3 full days. For a group of 20 to 30 people, a single mammoth could mean food for weeks. It could mean survival through a season. The risk was proportional to the reward, but the reward was only real if you made it home. Here's what the bones cannot tell us, but the anthropology strongly implies. The mammoth hunt was not just about food, it was about identity, about who you were in relation to your group. The planning, the coordination, the shared danger, the shared reward. These experiences built exactly the kind of deep trust that held prehistoric communities together across generations. Polly Wiesner, an anthropologist who studied modern hunter-gatherer societies and their parallels to prehistoric life, documented how shared high-stakes activities create social bonds that persist for decades. The hunt was social infrastructure as much as it was subsistence. The last mammoth hunt in the archaeological record happened around 4,000 years ago on Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean, a population of dwarf mammoths that survived long after their mainland relatives vanished. Isolated enough to escape whatever combination of climate change and human hunting pressure drove the Great Extinction. By then, the civilizations of Egypt and Mesopotamia already existed. Somewhere humans were inventing writing while other humans were still hunting mammoths. And then they were gone. The next time you see an elephant, in a documentary, in a zoo, on a screen, look at its size. Really look. Now imagine it covered in dense orange-brown fur with tusks twice as long in a landscape of snow and grassland stretching to the horizon. Imagine the ground shaking. Imagine 20 people around you, none of them speaking, all of them holding spears, waiting for the signal. Your ancestors did not just see that scene. They lived it. They planned for it. Some of them died in it. And the ones who didn't carried that knowledge to their children, who carried it further, until the mammoths were gone, and the knowledge became story, became myth, became the deep ancestral memory of something enormous and dangerous that humans once faced and sometimes defeated. The ground is not shaking anymore. It hasn't been for 4,000 years. But your body still knows what that feeling meant.